This video is a brief introduction on using Pro Styles with ButtonPlus 2. So we've got a page with some buttons on it, various different styles, and you'll notice that one of them is a different style. This is styled with the custom settings in ButtonPlus 2. You can see we've just changed it to custom from its default primary site styles, just like that. And we'll come back to this because we'll see how we can use the custom setting to override any Pro Styles that we set up. So let's add a Pro Styles stack to the page. Now Pro Styles supports Pro Styles for lots of different things: backgrounds, overlays, section layouts, and it now has another entry at the bottom which is a ButtonPlus 2 master style. So just like the other Pro Styles masters, when we add it, it's not assigned to any elements. The first thing we need to do therefore is decide what we're going to apply our style to, and that's the very first setting, and this is the master ID. Now we're going to, in the first instance, we're going to choose all ButtonPlus 2s on the page. So whatever we set in here is going to override everything. So this is a bit like the swatches in site styles. There is one exception: anything that has its own custom style won't get affected. So if, for instance, we set our style to custom in our Pro Styles master, now you'll see instantly everything on the page has the default custom style from the ButtonPlus 2 settings. The Pro Styles settings are almost the same as the ButtonPlus 2 settings, so it's very familiar. So if we want to change all the buttons on our site to red, we just change that Pro Style to red, and everything that's not a custom style button instantly changes to red. Now you think, well, that's great, but we can do that with foundation swatches. Well, you can, but Pro Styles gives you a lot more choice in styling. We can change the text color independently. We can change anything just as we would do with an individual ButtonPlus stack. We can change the icon colors. You can see that any buttons that have got an icon on them will have this gray color, the little carrot there, and if we had any split buttons on the page, they would have a blue edge. So let's change the split background to our orange color, and we'll make the hover the same, and we'll change the icon to a black, and then it'll show up against the orange. So this is our prototype button up here in the master. This is how they will look. So if I now just simply take this one on the page and change it to a combi button, then it's got a black icon. If I then click the split button, then we see that the split is now taking the orange, yellowy orange color from the master. So that's great. But of course, the other thing you can't do with simple swatches is gradients and other things like that. So if we want to apply a gradient to all our buttons, one click and all the buttons on our page have now got a gradient. And I guess we should change the icon colors, because the icon colors are still black. So if we make the icon colors slightly off-white, there we go. Everyone on the page has changed. Now this is not only convenient, it's also very lightweight on your page. The Pro Style stack just writes a single CSS class, and then any buttons that are set to use that Pro Style will just get that class. So you've got one piece of code on your page that's controlling every button. It also means that if you put Pro Styles in a partial, your entire site can be consistent and easily styled. So it's not only convenient for you, but it is very efficient in terms of the final page. Instead of having a gradient for every one of these buttons, we have one gradient definition in our CSS, and every button just gets to use them. Now at the moment, that's every button on the page, because we told ButtonPlus master to use all button to apply to all ButtonPluses. Now if we change that, so we just select ButtonPlus master 1, so this now is assigned to the master 1 settings, so only the buttons that we give this setting will be affected. So if, for instance, we'll take this split button and we'll say in its style control, we want to give it ButtonPlus Master 1. And there we go. And this one above it, let's have that matching as well. So that's going to have Master 1 style. If we've got a bar with some buttons in it, we could change every button, or we can just change the style of the bar in our button styles to ButtonPlus Master 1. So the first thing you notice is the buttons in edit mode are not going to change in the bar, but what you get is this master style preview that shows you what the buttons will look like, or a representation of the colors used for the buttons and the gradients, etc. And our bar preview shows us that color as well. So let's preview that page and we'll see that these button bar buttons will also get this red and yellow styling. And there we go. There's the button bar. We haven't changed the hover color in our master, so it's still going blue, but all the buttons in that bar have instantly changed to our master style that we set. Anything else on the page, so this button here, this button group down here, and our custom style are unaffected because we've told it that we only want our buttons that have been assigned a master style of 1 to use this. So let's create another master style. We're going to just add another ButtonPlus master, and this time we're going to assign it to master 2. So we can give this a different set of styles. Remember to let's change it to custom, and we'll make these buttons a green color. This time we'll remember to do the hover color as well, shall we? Or let's give it an automatic hover color. When you press this automatic hover color, it will just darken the button. It saves you having to set these things. And while we're on, let's go back to Master 1 and just turn on the automatic hover. So back to Master 2. We could probably do with some icon colors that show up. I'm not worried about the actual style here. Let's just get something that looks different. And we've now got our Master 2 style. And as you can see, it's applied to the button here. We could apply it to anything else we want. And for instance, one of the buttons in the bar. And this is a nice example. We've already styled the bar to our Master 1 style, the red. But if we then override that on a button by button basis and give this Master 2 style, now you see when we apply it to a button directly, then you'll see it in edit mode. So let's preview that now. So you can see now the bar as a whole has got the Master 1 style, our red and yellow scheme, whereas this button we've given it its own style, just like this button here, the blue one, has got its custom style. This button in the bar has its own custom style, which we've told to be Master 2. So as you go trickle down, you can override all these settings. So the masters will take effect when nothing more specific is told to override them. So this particular button here, the green one, we've said, right, forget the master for the bar, we want this one to be green. So if we return to our master styles, you can see we have a design note. That is simply just so that you can easily see when you're in edit mode what it is. It doesn't get published and it doesn't do anything other than remind you, and we get a little mark here that says green button, so we know which was which. It's pretty obvious with buttons when you see them like this, but we'll just call that one red button. The reason for this becomes more apparent because with our styles master we can have lots of other things in it. I'm going to add a couple just to fill up some space. We'll have a section background and an overlay, a master background, a master overlay. Now in our ProStyle setting we can collapse them so it takes up a lot less space in edit mode and looks a lot neater. And this is where our labels come in. So we can see now easily that our red button is assigned to ButtonPlus Master 1. and our green button is assigned to ButtonPlus Master 2. So that's all the labels are for, but very convenient. Let's just get rid of these other child stacks for now. Now there are a few other settings in ButtonPlus Masters that you won't find in the ButtonPlus stack. First up, right at the very bottom, there's one that says Show Custom Font Selector for Font Pro. And next to our little green button, it tells you what the custom selector is. So if you're using Font Pro, then this is what you would add in the custom selector, and you will add your font to every one of these buttons. Now that we also have some text sizing controls, and we have custom and advanced as you do in the ButtonPlus stack, but we also have some spacing. So if you want to adjust the letter spacing or the line height, then, or even the word spacing, then you can do that here for all of the buttons that have that style. And that's really only necessary when you're using custom fonts that need some adjustment to their font making. And if you're using Font Pro, then do it through Font Pro, because your custom selector is going to handle all that for you. But if not, let's take our red buttons, and if we just change the letter spacing to something larger, you can see that all our red buttons, including our master style preview here, are getting that new letter spacing. So that's a useful feature if you're particular about your fonts. Now there's one last thing that we can see in the master settings, and that's the edit mode background. And if we just think about our button bar, if we're making a menu with a button bar, it's most likely going to have a background color, and quite often you will have white text on that. So let's just quickly add a background color to this button bar. Let's make it a sort of a dark black, as you would have with menus. And if we just quickly see how quickly it is to change them all back, we're going to quickly change these back to being normal buttons, and we'll take that master style off our second button and let it just get the primary site styles. So here's our preview. Remember, we don't see the master style until we preview the bar. We'll go to our button master stack, and if you're trying to make a menu, then most likely you don't want a background. And on this bar, we would want white text. So we'll set the text color to white. And of course, in edit mode, we can't see what's going on. So that's why we can just change the edit mode background. It doesn't matter whether it matches the bar or not, but as long as you can use it to see. So this is what we're aiming for with our bar. Let's preview that. And there we have our button bar with our 3 items on it in the white text without any background color. So that's just the purely in edit mode, just to make it easier to see what's going on. And that about wraps up this short introduction to master styles. Remember, you don't have to use them. You can use site styles swatches for simple colors. Fine, they're already there. But using master styles gives you a lot more control, particularly if you've got buttons with icons and split buttons. And you can use the gradient backgrounds. And remember that every time you add a master style, you're adding the code once to the page. And everything else that uses that master style is using that one piece of common code. So it's a great way to do it if you're using a constant theme throughout your site with a feature that only ButtonPlus will give you, such as gradient backgrounds. It's going to be a very efficient way of doing it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.